Good morning. Welcome to day 26. Almost that month mark, man. Crazy, right? So, just to hop right into shit because why not? That's how the days go. Today, I wanted to just have a real quick talk on like mental health and trauma and how it relates with our substance use, right? I had an old client call me yesterday and say something to the effect of how he and I never talked about substance use or treatment. I was like, no, but connect those dots. Everything that we did talk about was in relation to the substance use, right? Like the underlying cause, the contributing factors, what made it better, what made it worse. So in a sense, that's all we did talk about was his substance use without saying a single thing about his substance use, right? But anyway, the point being that I think I've yet to see a client come in that doesn't have some type of past trauma or active diagnosable mental health disorder. And that's the kicker, right? Because some of these mental health disorders can be drug-induced. You can have, the common ones, I'm pretty sure every person has like some depression and anxiety. That's the common ones that we see, right? But they can be drug-induced depression, drug-induced anxiety. You can even have like a drug-induced schizophrenia. Like picture somebody on meth who's been awake for days on end and they're hallucinating, they're hearing voices, they have that paranoia. They have a lot of these features that we would see in schizophrenia, so it could end up misdiagnosed. But, that doesn't happen often. The moral of the story here is whether it's drug-induced or it's the actual mental health disorder on its own, like chicken came before the egg type of thing, the symptoms are real, right? And the symptoms are what we need to look at to be treated. If the underlying symptoms of why we use aren't being taken care of, why would we stop using? I always tell people that people use substances, I'm pretty sure I said this in another video too, that people use for two reasons. They either want to feel a certain way, like it feels good, or they want to stop feeling a certain way. And sometimes, I don't know, in my area, meth is our biggest drug. We have meth everywhere. Other areas of the country, it's probably more heroin prevalent. So, you can basically, there's this trauma-informed care that I went to that broke down, and it was my favorite part of the whole thing, what mental health disorder a person likely has linked with the substance that they use, right? So ADHD, attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, that's where we're seeing our stimulants, the meth users, the things like that. The depression, that type of thing, more of an opiate or, that could be anything because you basically just want anything to feel better. But I don't recall what they all are, but it was super neat because if you look at the symptoms of the disorder versus the effects of the substance that they're using, they have that correlation. They are related. Like people, I'm going to just keep rolling with the ADD and meth one. So like people with attention deficit disorder, they have a hard time keeping their mind focused on one thing. And that's what meth does for them. It balances them out. So they're not looking for this high necessarily. The euphoria that comes with it, I'm sure, is an added bonus. But what it is they can feel like they can finally concentrate on things and get things done instead of all these random loose ends on to the next thing, what's going on, kind of ongoing thing, right? So what we see is that there's a lot of correlation between this. And then going back to the trauma piece, I want to really clarify that trauma is subjective. What some person goes through and doesn't find to be traumatic could be something that completely traumatizes me, right? It's our experience and how we perceive it that decides if it's trauma or not, how our body's responding to it. And the bitch of it all is that when you're in the world of addiction, right? If you're in active use, you're more likely to go through these traumatic events, watching somebody overdose, having some kind of like violence going on, like robbery and all these other things that are like pretty common. I wouldn't even say common, but more likely to happen in that world than not in that world, right? So it becomes this vicious cycle, right? We have some kind of trauma, so we use, and we continue to be traumatized, and we continue to use, and it just becomes this ongoing thing that we can't stop. So if we look at where did the original trauma come from, and we can start to not even fix it or heal it or just cope with it, being okay with it, then maybe we're ready at that point to make some changes with our substance use. Maybe if we are seeing somebody for our anxiety, for our panic attacks that we're having when we're leaving the house, for our depression where we can't get out of bed for days at a time, if we start to treat that, then maybe we don't need that substance anymore to make us feel a certain way. So that's part of the correlation between the trauma and mental health, right? And then I was talking about the substance-induced mental health things. So we can use, and that can lead us to that. I mean, especially all the brain shit that I've talked about, when we're not producing dopamine, we have those feelings of depression. But like I said, the symptoms are the same and needed to be treated the same. So in those early stages of recovery, say it is drug-induced depression, we are going to want to do those same kind of treatments that we would for depression, because that's what our body is going through. It's not permanent and it's not forever. Maybe it's just until the drug gets out of our system, and we need that like 30, 60, 90 days to let it fully get out of our system, let our body heal, let our brain functioning return to normal, or at least a new version of normal, right? And the symptoms will go away on their own. But whether it's drug-induced or it was there before, chicken, egg, it doesn't matter. We have to take care of it. And it's all part of taking care of ourselves, right? Recognizing what it is, that underlying thing that we are too scared to talk about because it's fucking scary, or it hurts, or it makes us vulnerable, or maybe we don't even know. But talking through it with somebody can help us identify it better, and maybe that gives us more insight into why we're even using in the first place, and that's where we can make changes. Just the thought of the day. Have a fantastic Saturday on this wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Bye.